Have you ever been rejected by your own family on the most important day of your life? I have experienced it in the most painful way, being excluded from my own sister's wedding because of a disagreement I didn't expect. My story is not just about hurt, but also about how I turned that pain into a revenge stage they will never forget. This is not a romantic story, nor is it a comedy story. This is a journey of drama, betrayal, and a cunning plan of revenge that took place in a faraway place where no one expected me to go. Iceland. Welcome to Judgy Tales, a YouTube channel where we tell real stories, real drama, and real judgments. Each video is a journey into complex psychology, shocking events, and decisions that will make you rethink the concepts of family, love, and revenge. If you like heart-pounding, suspenseful, and unpredictable stories, then you've come to the right place. Today I'm going to tell you a story that I never thought I would experience. Since I was a child, my sister and I were very close. But then misunderstandings, unresolved conflicts, and growing distance made me an outsider in my family, or more precisely, an excluded person from my sister's wedding. An event that I thought would be a moment of family reunion and happiness. But instead of being invited, I was banned, ignored as if I didn't exist. That pain was like a smoldering fire in my heart, burning but not easily erupting immediately. I chose to leave everything behind and set foot in a strange land, Iceland, where I not only found myself but also hatched a plan that would make them regret. This story will take you deep into the recesses of my soul, into the risky steps, difficult decisions, and drastic changes not only for me but also for those who once abandoned me. So what were they thinking when I disappeared? Did they know that I was watching every step, planning a spectacular revenge? All will be revealed in today's video. Join Judgy Tales in this true story, feeling the range of emotions from pain, disappointment to unexpected wisdom and perseverance. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next dramatic, shocking, and touching stories. Now start this journey with me, where loneliness, betrayal, and revenge are interwoven in a story that you won't be able to take your eyes off. I grew up in what seemed like a very normal family, a family that everyone thought was exemplary. Parents loving their children, siblings always being together, supporting each other. But in fact, that family picture was not entirely like that. I was the second child of 3 siblings, with the oldest sister being the center of attention and the youngest brother always being pampered. I, in the middle, always felt like an extra. No one really cared or understood me. My older sister, Anna, was very outstanding from a young age. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also very talented, confident, and had high expectations from her parents. I used to admire her a lot, seeing her as a role model. However, as we grew up, we began to have many differences in our outlook on life and the way we looked at things. Small disagreements accumulated, creating an irreparable gap. Every time we met, instead of laughter and sharing, there were only cold looks and unpleasant sarcastic comments. My parents also played a huge role in this story. They were loving people but had a rather traditional and rigid way of expressing their love. They always prioritized Anna and even made decisions that made me feel abandoned. Their high expectations for my sister made me feel pushed aside, as if I was not good enough to be in the family's arms. This made me feel lonely and misunderstood in the house I grew up in. My relationship with my younger brother was not very smooth either. Although he was a relative, because of my parents' biased treatment and long-standing conflicts with Anna, we often had conflicts. My younger brother always sided with Anna, and I became a real outsider in the eyes of the family. The story really began when Anna announced her wedding. I was so excited and looking forward to attending my sister's big day, hoping that this would be an opportunity for us to mend what had been lost. I had prepared everything carefully, from wedding gifts to dresses, and even spent a lot of money to help make her wedding day more perfect. I believed that family love would overcome all disagreements. I was wrong. My family, especially my parents and Anna, decided to remove me from the guest list. They did not explain the reason clearly, only saying that they wanted to keep the atmosphere happy and harmonious, and that there were things that did not need to be discussed anymore. I felt deeply betrayed. Even the sister I once loved, the person I once thought would always stand by me, was willing to remove me as if I did not exist. The pain of being abandoned was not only about not being able to attend the wedding, but also a deep psychological trauma. I felt rejected by my family, turned into a stranger. Every day that passed, I asked myself, why am I being treated like this? Did I do something wrong? Or am I not worthy of being loved and present in their important moments? With all these thoughts, I decided not to stay in that house full of painful memories. I chose to leave my family, leave the place I once called home, and go to Iceland, a strange place completely different from everything I had ever known. I needed a space to heal, to think and to plan for my future without being bound by my painful past. In Iceland, amidst the majestic natural landscape and the gentle people, I began to rebuild myself. But I did not go there just to run away. I came to fight in my own way. I began to plan to show my family and sister how big a mistake they had made in rejecting me. It was a plan that was not just about revenge but also a journey to prove my worth, to affirm that I was not inferior to anyone. This story is not only mine but also the story of many people who have felt abandoned and hurt by their loved ones. It is about loneliness in one's own family, about how conflicts, expectations and prejudices can destroy family relationships. But most importantly, this is a story about the power of resilience, about how one can stand up and rebuild from the broken pieces of the past. So please join me to explore that journey from the days of being abandoned to the determined and creative steps in a strange place, where I turned pain into strength and turned rejection into an opportunity to change my life. This story will make you rethink the definition of family, about forgiveness and revenge. And don't forget, this is just the beginning of an emotional and dramatic journey that Judgy Tales will tell you. The day I realized I was officially cut from my own sister's wedding, it didn't come out of nowhere. There was no clear email or full text message. No explanation. Just a series of vague signals, averted glances, family conversations that I was no longer invited to. And then one quiet evening, I accidentally discovered through a post from my cousin on Instagram that Anna's wedding date had been set, without me on any of the lists. The first feeling wasn't anger. It was shock. Silence. Like standing in the middle of a crowded room and all eyes were on you as if you were invisible. I held my phone, my heart pounding, and saw a photo of my sister and her fiancé posing next to a wedding sign that clearly read, "Welcome to Anna and Michael's wedding, September 8th. I felt like the air around me had thickened, no sound reaching my ears. I tried to reassure myself. Maybe it was just an oversight. Maybe she meant to tell me. But when I called her, the call was rejected. I texted, "Are you going to tell me later? I just saw the wedding photos. I haven't received the invitation yet." No response. I drove to my parents' house the next day. I needed an answer. An explanation. Little honesty. But when I walked in, my parents looked at me with eyes that I will never forget. Not angry, not heartbroken, but the eyes of people who were mentally prepared to not need me in the family picture anymore. My mother sighed and said, "Son, your sisters think your presence will make the atmosphere tense. Everyone just wants a happy day, no drama." Drama. They called my existence drama. What am I? I asked. A troublemaker? A stranger? My father avoided my eyes, only repeating the familiar phrase, "We don't want to fight, don't make a big deal out of it." I almost choked. I asked again, "What about the invitation? Do you have an invitation?" My mother replied as if it were obvious, "No. I'm not on the list." And that was the final blow. There was nothing left to salvage. I left the house, no one to stop me. No one to apologize. No one. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling as if searching for some loophole to escape this reality. I recalled every memory of my childhood. The times I stood behind my sister, giving her everything. The times I was compared. The times I swallowed my anger and didn't say anything. And now none of that mattered. I was no longer a part of their lives. A few days later, I received a text message from an old friend. Someone I had worked with on a social project. He was living in Reykjavik, Iceland. In a brief message he asked, "Why do you look so unwell? Is something wrong? If you need a break, Iceland has a place for you." I looked at the screen, and for the first time in days I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I knew what I needed. I needed to get out of here. I needed an earthquake to awaken the strong part of me, the part that had been dormant for so long. I booked a flight the next morning. By the time my family was ready to throw my sister an engagement party, I was on the plane heading north. I was no longer the one left behind. I was on my way out of the invisible prison they had built. When I landed at Reykjavik airport, the cold wind hit me like a slap in the face. But I felt alive again. The snow-capped mountains, the faint smell of sulfur from the nearby hot springs, the almost sacred silence of Iceland. All of it was embracing me. For the first time in years I felt welcomed. Unjudged. I rented a small cabin near Lake Mævitn. There, in the wilderness, I began to write. I wrote it all down. My traumas, my memories, my buried desires. I made videos. I told them all. Without hiding. Without holding back. And then I uploaded them. A new channel, a new identity. Viewers began to flock to me and my story touched thousands of hearts. They said, I was treated like that. I was excluded from my family's lives. Thank you for speaking for me. I wasn't there when my sister got married. But I wasn't in pain anymore. Because while they were laughing in a glittering backdrop, I was standing alone amid the aurora dancing across the night sky in Iceland. Smiling brightly, holding my phone and live streaming, thousands of people cheering me on. You are not alone. The climax of the story isn't the moment I was excluded from the wedding. It's the moment I realized, I don't need an invitation to be valuable. I don't need the acceptance of people who never really knew me. I just need me, and the freedom to rewrite my story. I stood there among the dark gray cliffs of Reykjavik, listening to the waves roaring in the cold wind. There was no one around me. No more mother with her excuses. No more father with his disappointed eyes. No more sister with her gentle but calculating smile. Just me in Iceland. And at that moment in this vast space I knew what I had to do. Not to retaliate in a mean way, but to rise up in a way that would make them swallow the silence they had given me. I didn't want to take revenge by interrupting my sister's wedding. I didn't want to interrupt the ceremony. I didn't want to leave a stain on their photo album. They were used to me being submissive, silent, unresponsive. This time I would do it differently. I would show them that silence could scream too. I started filming. No studio, no special lights. I used my own phone and the natural light of Iceland as my companions. In the first video I sat in a field of frosty grass with snowy mountains in the distance. I told my story. No embellishment, no dramatization. Just the truth, as raw and cold as my temporary home. I called it, When My Family Chooses Silence, I Choose to Speak Up. I uploaded it to TikTok. And then I waited. I didn't expect it to go viral. I just wanted to feel seen. The next morning I woke up to more than 200,000 views. Thousands of comments, mostly from people who had also been excluded from weddings, from family holidays, from the lives of people they thought loved them unconditionally. I realized that my pain was not isolated. It echoed a community of people who had been hurt by their own loved ones. So I continued. I told each piece. The time I was forced to stand behind my sister in every photo. The time I was left out of a family chat when they talked about going on vacation. The time my birthday was forgotten because it overlapped with my sister's wedding plans. And the time my mother told me, you have to learn to step back and make room for someone who deserves it. Each video was a cut into the mask my family wore when they went out. The model, close-knit, loving family. I didn't use real names. I didn't name anyone. But they knew. They definitely knew. And I knew I had tapped into something deeper than anger. I had aroused empathy. An independent journalist from the US contacted me. She said she wanted to write a story about people who are excluded by their families because they don't fit the mold. My story was the starting point. I agreed on one condition. I wanted to tell it in my own voice. The article aired the day my sister got married. As they raised their glasses to celebrate, strangers everywhere read the headline. Slitted from her sister's wedding, this girl turned Iceland into a launchpad to respond with freedom and dignity. A few hours later, I received a text message from a relative. What's going on? Why is our family name in the news? I didn't reply. I set out to create a video series called The Unspoken Words at Every Wedding. Each episode featured a story. The sister who was left out because she was transgender. The girl who wasn't invited because she chose to study art instead of becoming a doctor as her parents expected. The boy who was banned from his brother's wedding because he was too poor. I connected with them. I let them speak. I reframed those stories in the context of Iceland, where no one was interrupted, no one was silenced. Iceland became a symbol of purification, of the truth being spoken. Views skyrocketed. My channel surpassed 1 million followers in 2 months. And then, out of the blue, I got an email from Netflix. They wanted to buy the idea and invite me to write a miniseries. They said, We've never seen such a powerful artistic response." I laughed. Not because I was triumphant, but because I had finally turned the invisible into light. A few weeks later, I got an email from my sister. Not an apology, but a vague line: "I went too far. The whole family is talking. My parents are tired of being called." I just wrote back, "I'm just telling the truth. If the truth makes you uncomfortable, it's not my fault." They never contacted me again. But I wasn't alone. I had my community. People who saw me as their voice, their soul mate. I got letters from all over. People who painted pictures for me, people who wrote poems thanking me for helping them deal with their toxic families, people who changed their plane tickets just to go to Iceland and find themselves again. And I knew, this wasn't revenge. This was rebirth. If revenge meant hurting someone else, then I didn't need it. I just needed to prove that I was worthy of being there. I didn't need an invitation to enter my own world. And I did. I never imagined that a runaway from my sister's wedding would change the trajectory of my entire life. But when you're cut off from your own family, from important events, from conversations, from photos you're supposed to be in, then maybe the only thing you have left is yourself. And if you're lucky, you learn to stand up for yourself. When the first video I shot in Iceland went viral, I thought it was just a fleeting moment, an accidental hit. But it didn't stop. Instead, the ripple effect from it was like a waterfall that spilled over every limit I'd ever placed on myself. Each time I told it, more and more people found themselves in it. I was no longer the invisible girl left out of the wedding. I became the voice of thousands of voices silenced by the "it's just a family matter" narrative. And then the inevitable happened. My mother called. First there were a few missed calls. Then a text message. "You're embarrassing your family. Why are you showing your back like that? People are talking about it. Your dad is disappointed." I read the text message but didn't reply. In the past, I had wished my mother would call just to ask how I was doing. But now, when she called just because she was worried about what people would think, I felt liberated. Did I owe them an explanation? No. They owed me the respect they had never given. A week later, I received an email from my sister. It was exactly one line long. "I think you're going too far. People will hate you for your negativity." I read it over and over again. I had thought she was a nice person. But niceness is only valuable when it's unconditional. And I had lived so long in the shadow of my wonderful sister that I had forgotten that I deserved to be seen too. At that point, I didn't write back. I didn't explain. I didn't rebut. I just made another video. In that video, I recounted my mom's message. My sister's words. No names. No rancor. But I let my true feelings flow through each word. I talked about the pain of a family that only cared about appearances and ignored the real hurt. I let the truth speak, and it resonated louder than any rebuttal. That video got over 10 million views in 3 days. Then something unexpected happened. Someone I didn't expect texted. It was my cousin, who had always been quiet in every family conversation. She wrote, "You're not wrong. I've seen you excluded for years and I wanted to say something. But I was scared. Now I wish I was as brave as you." I cried when I read that message. Not because I was sad, but because someone in my family had finally seen me. And that, however small, was a beacon of light in the dark. From there, I started getting more and more responses like that. Not just from strangers but from people I knew. A high school friend I thought had forgotten me texted, "I've been watching every video you post. I never knew you were so strong. You're truly inspiring." A former coworker wrote, "Watching you do this makes me look at my own family. Thank you for saying things that most people are afraid to face." I started getting invited to small talk shows. My old university even invited me to share with media students about the right to tell your own story. I'm not a speaker, but when I stood in front of them, I found myself no longer shaking like before. I stood up straight, my voice clear, my eyes not avoiding, because I knew I wasn't speaking just for myself, but for many others who couldn't speak. Then one afternoon, I received a package from America, a wedding photo album. It was from my sister. Inside was a handwritten note. "I thought you would want to see that day even if no one invited you. This is my way of making amends if you still want me in your life." I sat for a long time, flipping through each page, seeing the faces of my father, my mother, everyone else. Without me, part of me was hurt. Part of me felt relieved. Because after all, I no longer wanted to belong to a place where my presence required permission. I made a short video not specifically about the gift package. I just stood in the middle of the melting lake, looked into the camera and said, "Sometimes the things that hurt you the most are the things that teach you how to heal yourself. And you don't need to be invited to create your own stage." I didn't answer my sister. I didn't call my mother back. I didn't go back. But I forgave, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved to be free of hatred. When the winter ended in Iceland, I decided not to go back to my old home. I rented a small cabin near Akureyri and started writing a book, The Wedding I Wasn't In. The book was not about criticism, but about recording the growth journey of a person who was once considered a supporting character in his own life story. I wrote the first chapters with tears, but the more I wrote, the lighter I felt. I gradually changed from the excluded person to the person who chose. I stopped waiting for someone to open the door. I created my own. The day I signed my publishing contract, I sent my sister one last email, and it was this: "I didn't come to the wedding, but it was my absence that led me to myself. Thank you for letting me step out. No one knows if we'll ever reconnect. No one knows if my mother will ever understand. But I know I won't go back to being the silent one. Even if I have to stand alone in the snow, I will still speak. I will tell. I will be present. Open endings or starting over. Because sometimes the best things don't come from what you're invited to. They come from choosing to walk away even if no one is with you." So there you have it. A person left out of a family wedding finds light in what seemed like the darkest corner of his life. But now, it's your turn. I want to hear what you think. Honestly, without holding back. Because this isn't just my story. It touches on something so deep that many of us have experienced. Being excluded. Being ignored. Being made invisible in the very place we call family. So tell me, backhand index pointing right, have you ever been left out of an important moment in someone's life? Maybe a wedding, a graduation, a family gathering, or even a conversation that you were supposed to be the first to hear. How did that feel? Did you stay silent? Or did you stand up like me? Backhand index pointing right, do you think I'm being too harsh by making this public? I know some people will say, family is private. Don't expose it online. But does silence really heal? Or does it just continue to cover up wounds that have never been named? Backhand index pointing right, do you believe that there are boundaries that should be set with your own family? Because in this story, some people accused me of exposing my own flesh and blood. But I don't think blood should be an excuse for someone to be treated badly without being able to respond. What about you? Where are your boundaries? Have you ever cut ties with someone in your family? And if so, did it make you feel guilty or free? Backhand index pointing right, what do you think about forgiveness? In this video, I didn't get revenge by hurting someone back. I just told the truth. And I forgave, but I didn't forget. For you, does forgiveness mean having to come back, reconnect, continue to bond? Or do you also believe that forgiveness is sometimes simply letting yourself move on? Backhand index pointing right, finally, if you were me, would you come back? If the sister who once pushed you away from the most important day of her life now proactively sent you photos, proactively opened up, would you forgive and come back? Or would you hold on to your new life, where you are seen, heard, and most importantly, can be yourself? I know these questions are not easy to answer. Maybe you are watching this video after going through something similar. Maybe you are not ready to say it. And maybe you are nodding silently because you know that feeling better than anyone. But if you feel safe enough, brave enough, share your story in the comments. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be long. It just has to be real. Because you never know, your story might be something someone else needs to hear so they don't feel so alone. Speech balloon, leave a comment. I was the one who was left out of. My family was also. I forgive, but I chose. If it were me, I would. Or simply, thank you for telling this story. I read all the comments. And I know that the Judgy Tales community is not just a group of people who watch. They are people who understand. We're not here to judge anyone harshly, but to ask the bigger question. Tornado, what is right, when what's right for one person is wrong for another? Puzzle piece, is it true that family is always right? Broken heart, and if your family hurts you, should you continue to tolerate it? Or should you protect yourself? If you've ever been hurt by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally, you're not alone. If you've ever walked away from a relationship because you knew you deserved better, you're not wrong. If you've ever found strength in your own pain, you're stronger than you think. This is Judgy Tales. A channel for true stories, twists, and hard-to-swallow endings. But also a place for you to find yourself. For you to ask questions, to voice opinions, and maybe even find the voice you never had the courage to say. So what do you think? Tell me and tell yourself too. For listening. If you've come this far with me, today's story has probably touched you somewhere. Maybe it's empathy, an old wound, or simply the feeling of someone finally understands. And if you want to continue to accompany these emotional real-life stories, don't forget to let me know you're there. Subscribe to become a part of the Judgy Tales community, where no one is judged for their feelings, where every voice deserves to be heard. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos every week. Because the next story might be what you need to hear right now. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Let's continue to judge, share, and tell the stories that no one dares to say out loud.